Just a Mission Debrief. We're playing every mission of the mainline Halo video game series in chronological order, discussing our experiences and sprinkling in a little lore along the way. If you'd like to play along and have your thoughts read on the show, email us at podcastevolved@gmail.com or drop us a tweet at podcastevolved on Twitter. We'll be playing the Delta Halo mission from Halo 2 on the next episode. This episode, we're debriefing the Oracle from Halo 2. I'm your host, Colin Perkins, alongside David Arnold.
Hello, everybody.
And Krysta Brown.
Hands off my spark, you brute.
Last mission, Fel Vadum became the Arbiter and was sent on a suicide mission by the Prophets of Truth and Mercy to silence the heretic and his contingent at a mining facility near the recently destroyed Halo. With energy sword in hand and active camouflage at our disposal, we sneak and slice our way through the heretic's forces before chasing him through a space storm on a weird-looking Banshee. This mission, Fel gets his first taste of the Flood. The parasitic life form survived the destruction of Installation 04 and has taken over the lab section of the mining facility. While Urtas waits for reinforcements, the Arbiter continues to pursue the heretic, Sessa Rafumi, through the Flood infestation. The Arbiter eventually tracks down and kills the heretic, but not before he encounters the source of the heresy, the monitor of Installation 04-343 Guilty Spark.
Yes!
Tartarus suddenly shows up, confiscates Guilty Spark, and orders everyone to leave the system.
I like how he grabs him with the gravity hammer and then just casually throws him behind right over his shoulder.
Yep.
It's adorable. I
Just
love
toss him to the grab lift. That's right.
Sorry.
Continue. Date of the game, same day as last mission, since it's continuation of the Arbiter mission, October 20th, 2552. Let's go. So the beginning of it we do have a little cutscene here, and Urtas, he sniffs. He says, "That stench, I've smelled it before." And that is from, as we mentioned earlier, The Last Voyage of the Infinite Succor, which is a Halo graphic novel comic, the story written in that book. He encountered them in that story. He encountered them is the Flood. So more Flood. I wasn't ready for the Flood. Were you guys? I forgot about this.
It's really early.
I totally forgot about this. I was like, oh shit, there's Flood here. Once he said, I recognize that smell, and then the Floody music came on, I'm like, oh shit, we're doing this now, aren't we? God, I hate the Flood. Boo.
It is Flood time. So you see the Flood swimming around in some containment pools right away, kind of like those green containment pools. And then you see the Flood. You're walking over this bridge. You see the Flood attacking, some of the miners or some of the heretics down below. And then you get to a room where the heretic shows up, and he just starts. He says that he's there as a hologram of him, right? So it's a hologram there, and he admits that he says he's not surprised that the Prophet sent someone. Then he recognizes the Arbiter, which I thought was kind of cool. And he says that he's flattered. He's like, oh.
Well, I mean,
that makes sense.
The Arbiter is kind of an important piece of Sangheili culture. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he's basically he's the best warrior out of the Sangheilis, right? I mean, he's been dishonored, but at the same time, he's been given a right-hand position to the Prophets. So, even though he was dishonored, he was seen worthy of taking on the Arbiter position. So, I mean, if you're sending the Arbiter to kill me, it's like, that's pretty nice. You get best of the best.
That's right. That's true. And then Urtas then just he chimes in. He's there. He's good throughout these mission series. Throughout his role in Halo, he's good. But he asks for Sessa to show himself so that he can kill him. And then Sessa just says, "Get in line. Let's go." So he's ready for the fight. And then the Flood releases. It's time for the Flood.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Boo, no. Flood.
Boo.
Boo Flood.
Boo,
So why are you guys booing? We've talked about how the Flood is so important. Is it because just you weren't ready for the flood in Halo 2?
I just don't like fighting the flood in general. Like, I like the lore implications the flood carries, but I do not like fighting the flood.
Interesting. How about you?
Because they're
How about
annoying.
you, David?
Yeah, more or less the same. I mean, they've gotten better, I think, in the later games to fight than the earlier stuff. I mean, they look really cool. Halo 2 Anniversary is probably one of the best looking flood. But just this mission, I just really don't like this mission. It's one of my least favorite missions in all Halo.
Is it?
Oh, I love this mission.
It's so boring. It's so boring.
No, it's not.
It is. The sequence where you're on like this elevator that's like Mass
That is
Effect
boring,
style
yeah.
slow elevator.
That's where you would go
Gosh.
next, essentially.
Yeah.
Also, can you headshot these flood? Because I was using a carbine and killing them in one shot.
You can, yeah. But I mean,
okay, so that's what
the
it was.
only redeeming part of this mission is that you get a sword. And the sword with the flood is fun. It is fun to cut up some flood with swords. Yeah. I like that.
Also, you get enough swords, you can give the swords to the elites coming with you, so you all have swords.
I didn't
so it's a
know.
big sword party.
Can you give people swords? I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, you can give the other elites swords. I took
Cool.
a page out of your book, David, and started
Yay.
giving power weapons to my friends.
It's good. It's good to share, Krysta.
It is. It was a lot of fun. I felt very sad when they eventually died.
You get a sword, and you get a sword.
I'm Oprah of swords.
I get a sword.
Swords for everybody.
Everyone gets swords. Look under your seat. There's a sword.
Yeah, I do like when you take out a flood that just kind of explode into bits. It's pretty satisfying.
You can actually attack the dead bodies as well, and they'll explode only with the sword, though.
They're not so good for the infection forms. But
No.
more so for the combat.
The carbine isn't good either. I actually had one of my elites just had a regular plasma rifle, so I had him take them out because I was carbine and energy sword, and neither of them really help with the infection forms.
They're a pain.
Dual wielding the plasma rifles are pretty fun. I did that a lot today.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I like that. Good for you.
Pink mist.
No.
Pink mist 10 out of 10.
Oh no, not dual wielding needlers. That's too much for this mission.
10 out of 10.
The next little area, then, to your point, David, is weird. Like, what's going on with this elevator? What is it even stopping for? It seems like it's grabbing things out of the wall.
Well, I noticed it today. You'll notice that on this lift there are containers. Inside these containers is one parasite form, one infection form.
Okay.
So like these containers keep popping up through the holes in the floor, and like when they get destroyed, they get replaced. So the elevator is picking up and collecting these containers and dropping more or less flood spores on the elevator for you. And then
Why would the elevator do that, though?
I guess this is more of a flood related installation than you would realize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we so I mentioned kind of in my write up that the flood survived the the destruction of installation, but maybe this was just a lab that 343 had going on the side, because it's close, right? It's close to the ring. So, and he had talked about how he would, for years he would just kind of go away off the installation because he was bored. So perhaps this is one of the one of his side projects is having this.
Well,
lab.
and he also once his ring got destroyed, he went straight to the mining facility.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew it was there. He knew that there was something
That's a good
there.
point.
And I think it's also a power facility in some respect. I think it harvests the gas giant or something like that and creates power, which is why there are power cores everywhere. So I'm not sure if it's powering the installation, because most installations don't have an external source of power. It's just all internal.
Yeah, right.
No, I wouldn't say maybe they're collecting the gas for another reason. It may not necessarily be power. Maybe it's.
But the flood wouldn't have had enough, or excuse me, the Covenant wouldn't have had enough time to set this facility up, because they
I think
they
it's
just
Forerunner.
stumbled across.
It is Forerunner.
So it's definitely Forerunner. Yeah, talking this through. So it is a Forerunner mining facility. That makes sense.
Maybe they repurposed. Maybe the Forerunner mining facility was for flood, and they just wanted, because the Halo rings are originally supposed to house like creatures on it. It's basically like kind of a zoo or a preservation, which is why it's habitable on the surface of the ring. So maybe they wanted to study the flood, but didn't want to do it on the ring where other species were located.
Right. That makes sense.
Or it's 343 just on his little scouting expedition, his little holiday to his other lab.
He's being adorable and having a good time.
Back to the elevator. The Sentinels show up here. So we had to fight some Sentinels as well as Flood, and they just slowly, like, the waves of the Flood are weird, especially on normal. Like, I didn't have any problem cleaning up. You know, on the higher difficulties, I remember this room being hard, but on normal, it's super easy and super sparse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just you, two other elites, kind of just chilling out.
Mm-hmm. On this super slow elevator that continues to go down, and I guess
it's like spins side to side, too.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. Regardless, you do make it to the bottom, and let's see here. Then you get, there's like a hallway full of dead Flood through there, and you just pick up some ammo and whatnot, and then you reach kind of this overlook of a lab area down below, and there's doors, but the doors don't open, so you have no choice but just to break the glass and dive through and start hacking up some Flood.
This is the room where the terminal's located as well.
Yep. Terminal is down below, and then the skull is up above, so I'm not sure when the skull spawns. It must, or maybe it's just on the other side of one of the walls. That might make sense. But you have to crouch jump back up to the platform, and then the skull will be in a corner. This was a legendary skull, so you have to hop up there, and then there's like some like gyrating Flood around the skull.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's weird.
Ugh.
Like they're on the ground and just kind of shaking.
The skulls in Halo 2 are really weird because most of them you can only get on certain difficulties and stuff. I just haven't bothered to actually go get them. Because Halo 2 Legendary is ridiculous.
Yes, and it is.
The skulls were there for the original Halo, so it was probably just a way for them to, build in more stuff to do, because it was before all this side mission stuff that we have in games today. So that was their what they did to kind of prolong the life, I guess, of the game, of the campaign anyway, because everybody played multiplayer, countless hours. So we essentially just start, slicing and dicing and shooting Flood, and there's some heretics down here, and then I don't know, anything interesting about this room that you guys want to talk about? It's like a little lab area, so it's got some kind of cool.
It's where the terminal is. Other than that, there's nothing really.
We just said that, Dave.
I know, but that's it. Like, other than that, there's nothing really in this room. There's some turrets that are pretty useless against Flood.
Yeah, those turrets are weird because their I guess rotation is pretty limited.
Yeah, I tried them today. They're pretty pathetic. They take a ridiculous amount of shots to take out a Flood form.
Yeah, so it's not worth it.
Not at all.
Because I just ran around the room, slicing and dicing. Yeah.
So one of the doors at the very end of the room, after a kind of a weirdly long wait, will open, and some heretics will flow through there, so you gotta take them out. No problem, though. And then we get through the room, and then the comm channel opens there. And Urtas says that he's leaving, or he's not leaving until the leader of the heretics is dead. So he's just reinforcing that, hey, this is our mission. I'm still around here, right? Because he was going to wait for reinforcements. Let's continue this pursuit. You then get to like a bridge area, so you're kind of going across to a new building, and then a Phantom drops a couple reinforcements, since all your other buddies are probably dead by now.
Yup.
And then you head into this big room, and then there's like a little cutscene here. Do you guys want to talk through this cutscene, Krysta?
Which cutscene?
So the cutscene.
I know it's the big room.
The heretic locks himself in a room. It's really super short.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so it's this big room with a huge kind of spiry thing in the middle of it. You'll fight a couple Flood, and then you see the heretic, and you see him run into this room and go be behind the shield, and then some Flood come out and some other heretics come out. Once you kill them all Arbiter runs up to the shield and, slams his fist against it as the heretic goes into his little hidey hole and is really angry, and then they're like, wait, how are we going to get him out of this room? And Arbiter's like, I'm going to cut the cable to this facility. Because this facility is a hanging facility.
Yeah, which is weird, right? Like, it's just
yeah,
suspended.
because I thought this was... What is it suspended
I don't know.
I think the main
Maybe just-
center, there's another facility, like, if you look up, it's bigger. I think you get to see some of it very quickly in, like, the intro cutscene. But it's a big complex, and you're just on the bit that's in, I guess, the atmosphere of the planet.
Okay, so it's only this. This is a tiny part of the facility that's actually dangling.
Okay, that makes sense then. I guess if you want to dangle facilities from giant cords.
Yeah, I don't get why it's in a giant cord, but I like that you get to cut the cord.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, cutscene ends. Arbiter just runs up the little thingy and eventually gets to the top.
Well, he says before he gets up there, he says, "Okay, I'm gonna do it. This is gonna be, it's a suicide mission.
He tells him to go.
This is my solution." And then everybody takes off. All your other buddies take off, and one of them says, "We shall not forget your sacrifice," because that's what the Arbiter's job is, right?
Well, yeah, and this is completely suicidal. He's freaking crazy at this point. But they also say, "We're gonna wait for you," because they keep the Phantom around.
Mm-hmm.
And they just follow you as long as they possibly can. But you run up to the top and get to the big room full of flood, full of sentinels, and full of 3 cables.
So this wasn't super clear to me. There weren't, I don't think, any waypoints popped up for me. And I had forgotten what I was supposed to do. I was like, I remember running around. There's kind of like little glowy, I don't know, Forerunner symbols on the, where the cord hold. What is that? A pillar, I guess? A pillar?
Yeah.
So I thought maybe something was going on there. So I remember shooting them, and like, well, that didn't work.
You have to
You
cut them.
actually have to use the sword, right?
Yeah. And they give you a bunch of them too.
Mm-hmm.
Like by every single cable there's a dead flood with an energy sword. Which is nice.
Yeah.
Nice touch.
So you'll figure it out eventually.
But-
It's not super apparent. But
I didn't remember as well, but I looked up and saw 3 cables, and I'm like, well, I can't get them when they're up in the air like
Right.
that. I just followed the cable back down to where it originated from and went over there.
I think they do
Also,
say,
when you go
somebody says
towards-
you got to cut the cord, like what to kind
Yeah,
of
they tell you to
reinforce
do
that.
that.
Right, cut the cord. It's like, okay, well, how am I going to do this? Oh, okay, I guess I got to do the bases, so.
Also, it appears red when you go next to it.
Mm.
It has a red reticle instead of like just nothing, just a white
Yeah.
one. That's my favorite part of the mission is like him going to cut the cables. It's so cool. I think it's cool.
Just the fact that he is cutting the cables, you mean?
yeah, the lore implications, and then just cutting the cables, and then the facility. Every cable you cut, the facility like moves
Mhm.
where the cable's lost. It kind of tilts back and forth.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
I think it's cool. I like it.
It is cool. It is cool. And then
Even though David hates this mission.
Boo, this mission, boo. Mission
Boo,
sucks.
David, boo.
so we cut all 3
Boo,
cords.
David sucks, boo.
Cut all 3 cords, and then then the facility starts falling, and you kind of see that in the the
This part is
skybox
cool.
around.
And you go up in the air a little bit.
Yeah, you get kind of the floaty mechanic, and you can kill yourself here if you time it correctly, I guess, and jump as the facility drops away. It drops away from you and has the effect of you shooting up. It's really weird, but it's cool.
Yeah. And then you're kind of like, well, what do I do now? I guess I'm just going to go back down to the bottom.
Well, you have to go where his thingy is.
Where what?
His thingamabob, where his room is.
Yeah,
You
go
go back
down
into the room he was hiding.
To the guy. Right. Back to the heretic. Back to Sessa. So we make it all the way back down to there, and then we get another cutscene, right? Trying to think here.
We get another cutscene with him going into the Banshee.
Mhm.
Yeah.
With Sessa going into the Banshee, and then him turning around and firing the Banshee on Arbiter, and he goes into a Banshee
Yep.
to pursue.
Yeah, and that Banshee ride is super weird because it's super short. You just
Yeah.
have to, like,
Yeah, it is. It's like, hey, go to the next part of the facility.
Right.
It's kind of fun. You kind of get a couple heretics you can kind of take down in the Banshee.
Mhm.
Well, it's cool to think
But,
about it that you're free falling. Like, even as you're
Yeah.
flying forward, that Banshee is free falling with the facility,
true.
and you get attacked with other stuff. So, like, if you go too far away from the facility, you die. You get, like, you fly off.
Oh,
the
you do?
storm.
Okay.
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah. So, like, if you're like me, I don't even bother fighting. There are other Banshees here to fight, but you can just fly straight over. It's, like, pointless, really.
So
I think
this
it's
whole
cool.
time, I guess that brings up a good point. This whole time, the rest of this mission, you're in free fall,
Yes, you are in free fall.
and we're falling towards the planet.
Yes. It's a gas giant, so I guess we are getting
Falling towards its core.
the core of the planet, which I mean, if the gas planet was intense enough, the pressure would kill you from the condense. Because gas planets, a little science, but gas planets, they don't have, like, they have a little rocky core, but they don't really have a surface like Earth or anything else does. It's literally just, it's gas, like so closely condensed that it makes a planet, which is why, you know, we don't send probes into, like, Saturn or Jupiter, because the gas is so condensed that anything that goes into it just completely gets destroyed and torn apart.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird to think about.
Yeah, but whatever.
You know,
this is Halo. Halo science is different.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're in free fall this entire time. And they also make a little comment that he's actually going towards the Seraph fighter that was in the hangar, which apparently that weird looking Phantom is a Seraph, which doesn't look like a Seraph because it's way too wide and big.
Yeah, there's different models, and also this is the first
one we've
seen.
Yeah, it's a
or
primitive
the ones
model.
in Reach, I suppose. It's Seraphs in Reach.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Cool.
Pretty
and then we do the trope, the going backwards. It's time to go backwards, go back up, go back through the previous mission that we did. So but
I didn't mind it that much.
It wasn't too bad. I mean, there's Flood to fight now.
I did think it was kind of funny that, like, you crashed the Banshee the same way Chief was at the end of the first game.
Yeah.
And they
oh my god, I love that.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, that was good.
I wonder if they just reused that animation.
No.
It could have been. And just different.
It could have been a reused animation, yeah. But it's fun. I like it. It's a cool callback.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That was kind of cool. Then you make it all the way up to the top, and Sessa, the heretic, then uses his hologram balls.
Well, he first says a couple interesting things, because the Arbiter doesn't know what the fuck's going on. The Oracle Guilty Spark shows up, and he's like, hello, I am here to assist you. And Sessa's like, ask him questions. And Arbiter's like, what questions? He's like, I would love to answer all your questions. I love questions. And then before that, Sessa just starts taking pot shots on him.
Yeah.
But, I like how it's like, I like how Halo 2 has these kind of like, quote-unquote boss battles. Yeah.
So this is our first boss battle in Halo.
So we get two holographic and one real.
This is super annoying on Legendary. Like, super.
Yeah.
Because each of these guys are dual-wielding plasma rifles, and you just get destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. On normal,
on normal, I just hit him twice with an energy sword and he died.
I plasma grenaded him, and it was like, oh, dead. Awesome.
Nice.
It's only really good on heroic and legendary. Anything below that, it's like, wow, that was an easy boss battle. Awesome.
Yeah, it kind of takes away from the immersion, but oh well. Normal. It's a good
we don't have time to
normies.
spend an hour fighting this guy. Come on.
Exactly. Got things to do.
We have podcasts to record.
Mm-hmm. Are there Sentinels that show up around here too, or is it just him?
I killed him too quick. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm forgetting.
No, I think it's just him. I don't think you have to fight Sentinels. Okay. He's tough enough as it is.
On the higher levels.
Summoning in his own.
That makes sense. Yeah, so that's it. We got an end cutscene. David, you just watched it, right? So why don't you take us through the end cutscene, and then we'll move on to some terminal and community.
Yeah. So the end cutscene is just the Arbiter dragging the corpse of the heretic leader to the hangar bay doors. They open, and there's a brief conversation between the Arbiter and 343, and he's just like, sorry I had to kill him, or like 343 was like, oh, I enjoying his edification. And he loves answering questions for some reason. So Arbiter's like, sorry I had to kill him, he's a heretic, he was impeding the great journey. And as 343 is saying, why do you keep using this, inaccurate vernacular? And then like all these electricity beams come, and it's like the Tartarus's gravity hammer is just like pulling 343 to the top of it, and he just casually rips it off the hammer and throws it over his shoulder. And then the Arbiter's like, that was the Oracle. And Tartarus is like, oh, was it? And that's just totally like, yeah, I don't care, because I don't believe in shit.
Yeah, he's like, get in the ship.
Yeah, so he's like, we're leaving this system. So he just turns around and walks into the beam.
I love how close Arbiter gets to the truth. You're like, just say it, Guilty Spark. Just tell him, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's a weird because this mission does have a lot of variety, but I felt like I mean we've blazed through this walkthrough, like, so there's at the same time there's not a ton to it.
I think it's fun to play.
Yeah, I mean I think it's enjoyable enough.
I think the mechanics are interesting and really different for Halo, like the cutting of the cords that affects the rest of the mission, or just a boss battle at the end. I think it's interesting in those regards, because that's kind of the first time we see. It's almost like these RPG elements have been kind of like mushed into Halo a little bit. You got boss battles, you got kind of more difficult stuff you got to do. I don't know. I like having that kind of stuff. I like having like distinct stuff you have to do to affect the rest of the mission.
Yeah, you have to climb up, so that fight when you're climbing up to the top where the cables are, that's a little bit unique, and you kind of see the flood dancing up above. So I guess you I mean, especially in the higher difficulties, you have to kind of plan your attack, and do I go right after them, or do I try to shoot them from a distance? So that is a little bit unique rather than just kind of the flat surface, that we're used to, just shooting from a distance or going up and slicing them up. I don't know, David, you just hate this mission, huh?
Yeah, this is not for me. I don't like it.
Is it because of the flood? Because this mission is really flood heavy. That's basically what you're fighting.
It's the elevator sequence I don't like, and it's just the boss battles so killed me on Legendary. It just broke my soul. So I was just like, oh no.
This is Halo 2. If your soul hasn't been broken in some regard during Legendary, I mean, you can't base the whole game off of it breaking your soul. The whole game breaks your soul.
Good point.
Right, but
the salty tears of everyone playing Halo 2 Legendary.
There is one other cool point which I found when I was researching this mission. At the start, when the Spec Ops troops are about to encounter the Flood for the first time, an Ungogi soldier can be heard saying, "Me has a bad feeling about this," which is similar to Private Mendoza from Halo CE when they first encountered the Flood. And likewise, there's another grunt turns around and goes, "You always have a bad feeling," which mirrors Sergeant Johnson's response to Mendoza. So
oh my god, that's amazing!
Yeah.
I heard that dialogue, but
cool.
I didn't connect it back to Halo 1.
Yeah, I like that they set up that kind of mirror between the two games when both the Covenant first encountered the Flood, I guess, here. But they didn't know that before, I suppose. But the first time we see it. So I think it's pretty cool.
It's interesting that all species have the same reaction to the Flood. What the fuck is this? What the hell?
Smells really bad.
Right.
Smells super bad. I got a bad feeling about this.
Yep. That's cool. And then tie in the kind of the end or the Banshee cutscene. So there are kind of a lot of parallels from the previous game that they pull into this mission, which is cool. And this was called the Flood Lab. Is that right, David? You were saying?
Yeah. So in development, one of the notes that this was called the Flood Lab before they changed the name. So I imagine this installation is a lab as opposed to as well as a gas mining facility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like the name of the mission makes more sense because you're encountering 343 again versus kind of giving away the fact that the Flood are here right away, even though you know that right away. But yeah, all right. Well, let's do a little community and terminal action. Why don't we do terminal first, and then David, if you want to pull up the mission, or the community question I posted a couple of days ago about the energy sword.
I got it.
Perfect.
There's some really good stuff in that thread, but so this terminal, we talked about where it was. It's in that that 2-story room where you have to break the glass to get to the bottom of the room. It's towards the left. It's the opposite way that you enter or exit the room. It's the opposite end of the room. But this one is all about Guilty Spark and Sessa, the romance that never ends.
Oh no, it ended, Krysta. It ended real bad.
It's true.
Just because someone dies doesn't mean the love doesn't die. Have you ever seen Titanic? Anyway, it's just the Titanic story, but in Halo. Anyway, so Guilty Spark is just so perplexed about how Sessa is responding to the Flood outbreak because he's like, everyone everyone has to help us contain the flood. Doesn't matter what's going on. Guilty Spark just doesn't really seem to understand the politics going on in current time, like between the different, like the heretics, the Covenant, and the humans. He doesn't really understand what the interactions are, because in the Forerunner time, a lot of species were peaceful. There was a couple times where different species, like the humans, would rebel against the Forerunners, but all in all, it was a pretty peaceful galaxy until the flood came around. I mean, it wasn't horrible. So, of course, Guilty Spark's protocol is everyone who can possibly hold a gun needs to help us fight the flood. And Sessa's like, no, all you have is us. We're the only people here. We're not telling anyone we are here. And of course, Guilty Spark is like, no, there's humans and stuff. He's like, you don't understand. And of course, Guilty Spark's like, why is this so weird? Why is the prophets and the journey and all this shit going around? It also does a callback to when he was talking to the AI in Truth and Reconciliation in the first game. Mm-hmm. Of course, Guilty Spark says he got some information, but he doesn't understand the Great Journey and all this kind of twists and turns that have kind of happened to Forerunner artifacts. He doesn't understand why everyone doesn't know what he knows, I guess. But the last thing Fume says is what you need to know, Oracle, is that thousands of years ago at the founding of the Great Covenant, a bargain was struck between the prophets and the elites, a bargain which I fear will be the end of us. So if you don't know, that bargain is actually the Writ of Union, which was a charter of an oath of service between the prophets and the Sangheili. There was a huge battle between the prophets and the Sangheili and how they were going to treat Forerunner artifacts. The Sangheili are like, don't touch that shit. That shit's beautiful and sacred. and the prophets are like, we're going to touch it and we're going to make cool stuff out of it. So, I mean, basically. So, eventually the big war happened. The prophets started using a bunch of Forerunner tech to destroy them, and then eventually the Sangheili started using the Forerunner tech on their planet to make weapons, and then they're like, wait, why don't we be friends? Because we're using the Forerunner tech too. And so the Writ of Union is when they became friends. It says that the Sanshihim are going to take over every other part of Sangheili culture and life, including agriculture, science, all that stuff, and that Sangheili will literally just focus on war and focus on being great warriors and protecting the prophets, which also kind of, we see later in the games that this kind of really screws over the elites because now they don't have any infrastructure for anything but fighting. But that's kind of what he's talking, that it's going to be turn them into ruin. And I think Sessa understands that the Writ of Union basically made the elites solely dependent on the Covenant to function. So with this revelation that the Covenant are liars and that the whole purpose of the Writ of Union, the Great Journey and just finding Forerunner artifacts, and that the Forerunner are gods, which, I mean, the basis of the Writ of Union is the Great Journey and the religion. So
right.
I think he sees that now that part is broken, that the Writ of Union is going to be broken, and that there's going to be a war between Sangheili and the prophets at some point. So a little bit of Sessa was a smart guy for being pretty crazy and just murdering everyone and releasing the flood and dying, but
he wasn't murdering everyone. He was protecting. He was going to start a revolution, right? Like a revolution of truth, I guess. Yeah, he was, but he was a little. If he just waited a little longer, maybe. But yeah. Sessa was a good guy, and I think later in the games you kind of see him as a good guy. At this point, he's still kind of, he's the bad guy, we have to kill him. Yeah.
So.
Right. The way he's portrayed, correct.
Yeah. But he's been enlightened. So that's basically the terminal. It's a little more than what the terminal actually said, but there's a lot of context behind what Sessa and 343 are kind of talking about.
Absolutely. Thank you. David, let's talk about some community stuff, and we will skedaddle.
Yeah, that's... So, the great Colin Perkins posted in the Facebook group.
Who's that?
He said, some guy. He said, outside of screwing your opponents in hand-to-hand combat, what would be some fun, practical applications for the energy sword? So as you can imagine, we have a whole host of shenanigans
Well, we cut the
came out of this.
cables, right? So we can skewer the enemies, and then we
Yes.
can cut cables. So I was like, well, what else can we do
That's
with this
two
thing?
things.
What
Yeah.
else? What else can we use this thing for?
This fine multifunctional tool.
You could put two energy swords together and make a giant pair of scissors.
That's a good point. Yep, there's a new
yes.
one. Add
Yes,
that
you
one
could.
to the thread.
Aaron Campbell, the lazy bum that he is, said it would make chopping firewood so much easier.
It would.
'Cause you can just
Wouldn't
plasma
that
torch
set
chop
the wood
everything.
on fire?
I don't know. That's a good thing to say. It might sear it a little bit like a plasma. Like, might just cut through it so fast. It might necessarily set it on fire. I don't know. We'll have to test it out, Krysta.
All right, I have two of them, so we'll go out and test them.
Yeah, Nick
Chopping
Sapia said
wood.
it could be used by a butcher, but then you'd have pre-seared meat. Like,
That sounds fantastic.
that's pretty good. And then Brad Twerp came in on the same comment, which I really liked. He goes, "His flesh is seared just the way I like it," and I'm like, "Yes, Cody from the game, good job." Jesse said he'd use it every time a future boyfriend comes to his daughter knocking at the door. Intimidation will be strong. It's like, all right, Jesse, calm down.
Calm down, man.
That
might be a
John
crime.
Simpson says it's a key. I don't get that reference, but it's probably
That is from Red versus Blue.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Caleb says cutting bread because the heat from the blade will just give you toast. I'm like, ooh,
Yay!
I like that.
I like it.
Toast.
Toast. I'm skipping that one because it's dumb.
No, you're
Brad-
not. No, you're not. No, you're not. Read it.
Krista says pretending to be a Jedi.
They kind of are Jedi swords, right?
Very
I
much
know.
so. Yeah, they got that
They're
plasma.
They're just lightsabers.
Yeah.
They're pretty much lightsabery. Brad Tharp has a glow stick, a baton for dudes who wave in airplanes, Jaws of Life. Also good on handy of me to say where it's so easy, for dramatic effect. Well
Nice.
said. And Nick says a nightlight. So there you go. Loads of uses, everybody.
God, that would keep you really warm at night
Oh,
too.
man. That's right.
Like a lava lamp.
That's like leaving a million candles on in your bedroom.
It's pretty hardcore.
That's a bit of a fire hazard.
No one said letter opener because that was the loot, right? The loot crate.
Oh,
yeah, the
we
loot
got one.
crate came. I would burn your letter.
Yeah, it would.
That's the problem. It would just burn your letter.
Light it on fire.
I haven't gotten bills in 30 days. It's kind of weird. All my mail is on fire in a corner.
Oh man. All right, that will do it for our debriefing of the Oracle mission from Halo 2. On the next episode, we'll be covering Delta Halo. Send us your thoughts at podcastevolved@gmail.com or drop us a tweet at podcastevolved on Twitter. Until next time, evolved.
Evolved? Okay. That was fun.
Chief time. Back to Chief.
Oh, give me some good old Chief. I want some of that beautiful, beautiful Chief.